Welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's lesson. This is part of a 6-lesson series brought to you by the Food Trust Nutrition Educators. The Food Trust works to ensure that everyone has access to affordable, nutritious food and the information to make healthy choices. In this series, we'll be covering topics such as planning and saving on groceries, fruits and vegetables, bone strength, and more. Join us each week as we share nutrition information from My Plate, as well as tips and tricks to eating more healthy food at every meal. Meet our nutrition educators, who you'll get to know through our lessons or recipe demonstrations. We're excited to have you with us. For joining us. Please fill out our anonymous survey at the end of this video so that we can find out more about who we're reaching and how to serve our audience best. Mention that you watched our lesson online and you can earn food coupons to use when purchasing fruits and vegetables at a participating farmers market. Find the list of participating markets below on the survey form. We hope you come back for next week's lesson. See you then.
Jenn, thank you for joining us. Today's lesson is about how to make half your grains whole. Last week, we talked about varying your vegetables, and in case you missed Eddie's lesson, you can find it in our online portal. Throughout this lesson, we'll be talking about our grains and our grain foods, their benefits, and also how we can incorporate half of our grains in our diet to be whole grains. Here are some examples of our grains. We have some wheat and a corn kernel. Like we mentioned, we want to make sure that half our grains are whole grains. So what is a whole grain? A whole grain is exactly what it sounds like. We're going to have a grain with all of its components. Here's what makes a whole grain. We know that whole grains have all of its components, and we know that our refined grains means that certain items are removed from our grain. When we talk about our refined grains, we're referring to things that have either been enriched or fortified. Our enriched grains means that there are certain vitamins and components that have been added back to the product. However, even though we're adding all these things back, there are some that are just simply lost, like our fiber. And when we're talking about our fortified foods, we're referring to things that have been added to our grain product. That could be things like adding folic acid into certain cereals for our health. Just make sure to look at your ingredient list to know what kind of grain you are eating. Our refined grains can be enriched or fortified. When our grains are enriched, it means that certain B vitamins and iron are added back into the product. In this white flour tortillas, we can see that one of the ingredients listed is our enriched bleached flour. And you can also see the iron and the folic acid that has been added to the tortillas as well. Here's an example of some grain foods that are made from refined grains. We have a white flour tortilla, some of our white pasta, and our white bread. Whole grains and all of its components have great nutritional benefits. These benefits help protect and reduce our risk of certain types of cancers, heart disease, and other chronic diseases. Overall, having a variety of whole grain products in our diet will help us keep healthy. Our B vitamins found in our whole grain products can help our body absorb and use the energy from carbohydrates. Also, some of the fats and proteins that are all needed for our healthy tissues. Since whole grains and refined grains exist, we want to know if the product we are getting contains any of this. How do we know? Things like food coloring and certain phrases can make it confusing. So here are 2 ways that you can ensure that the product you're getting has whole grains. The first way to determine whether the product contains whole grain is by looking at the ingredient list. This will let us know if a product is 100% whole grain or a combination of whole grains and refined. Here we see that the first ingredient is whole grain wheat. That means that this product is, in fact, whole grain. Another way to know is sometimes certain boxes will have it on their label too. Whole grain is the first ingredient. Let's take a look at our tortillas and find out which one is our whole grain as well. In the ingredient list of this white tortilla, it lets us know that the first ingredient is enriched bleached flour. Let's take a look at the other tortilla. This one is whole wheat flour. So that's how we know that this one is a whole grain. Remember that sometimes coloring is not a good indication of knowing whether or not the product contains whole grain. Certain items can have food coloring and misleading phrases such as wheat bread. That's where the second way to identify it comes in. We can look in the product's name to also know whether or not it is a whole grain. Here we can see that right in front it says whole wheat, not just wheat. And that's how you know. Here is another example. When you see that 100% whole grain, that lets us know.
Now that we know the difference between our whole grains and our refined grains and their importance and benefits, we also want to know how many grains we should have in a day. And that usually varies by our age and our gender. Normally, children between the ages of 2 and up to 13 require something about 3 to 6 ounces of grains a day. Since we're talking about making half of our grains whole, then out of those 3 or 6 ounces, we want those whole grains to be anywhere between 1.5 ounces to 3 ounces. Now, if you're 14 and up or an adult, then you want to increase that amount of ounces. You're going to want to have anywhere between 5 to 8 ounces of grains in a day. And since we're doing the math, half of that can be anywhere from 3 to 4 ounces. But what exactly is an ounce? Let's take a look at different products and items to get an idea of what an ounce of grains is. Since we're talking about 6 to 8 ounces for adults, we want to visualize what an ounce looks like. So right over here, I have 1 slice of bread. That's actually considered the equivalent of 1 ounce. Same thing if you're eating whole wheat. So right here, I have 2 ounces. If you'd like to eat a sandwich during lunchtime, you already have 2 ounces out of your 6 to 8 in a day. If you like to eat cereal or oatmeal, 1 cup is considered an ounce. We're already at 3 ounces in the first part of our day. Let's incorporate more so that we can reach our goal. Maybe during lunchtime, you would want to snack on something like some crackers. 1 ounce equivalent is anywhere from 5 to 7 crackers. Or maybe you're having a quesadilla for lunch or something else that requires a corn tortilla. Here is 1 serving, 1 ounce. And maybe for dinner time, you want to incorporate an ounce of rice or pasta. That can look something like this. It will be half a cup of cooked rice, pasta, or any noodles. So as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ounces. Now that we have those, we want to make sure that at least 3 of those ounces are whole grains. So let's take a look. After reading my ingredient list, I know that this bread that I have right here is my whole wheat. So that is 1 ounce right there. For dinner, I did have some brown rice, so this is another ounce. We have 2 out of the 6 so far. When I read the ingredient list, I also found out that this corn tortilla is made of whole corn. So that right there is 3 out of my 6. But I do like to eat oatmeal for breakfast too, and when I read the ingredient list, it let me know that these were whole roll oats. So I'm actually at 4 out of 6. So depending on what you like to eat,
You can swap and incorporate these whole grains throughout your day and different meals.
So what is fiber? Fiber is found in the bran, which is the outermost layer of a grain. There's things like soluble fiber, which means it dissolves in water, and insoluble fiber, which means it doesn't. And both of these are very important. Fiber is going to help reduce our risk of heart disease. It helps prevent against certain types of cancers, and it also helps with our digestive system. Because it's helping with our digestive system, fiber actually keeps us regular. So we're avoiding things like constipation, hemorrhoids, and it's helping remove our harmful substances from our body, which again aids in reducing our risk of certain types of cancer. Not only that, but fiber also helps lower our cholesterol. And one of the other benefits is that it makes you feel full. So if you feel fuller, you're not constantly trying to snack, which can lead to things like overeating or eating unhealthy items as well. If you're not eating as often, you're also helping to maintain and control a healthy weight. Just like we talked about portion sizes and how many ounces of grains we need in a day and how it differs by age, the same thing applies to how much daily fiber we would want to get. A great way of knowing how much fiber we are getting in our item is to once again look at our nutrition facts label and look for a high percentage of fiber in the item.
Here we have two different kinds of cereals. When we look at the ingredient list, we know that both of them are whole grains because the first ingredient says whole grain wheat. Like we said, we want to pick products that are high in fiber for all of those benefits. So let's look at the percent daily value in the nutrition facts label to compare which one has more fiber. Here is our daily percent value per serving size. So here we are getting 1 cup is our 1 serving size. And when we look at dietary fiber, we're getting 17% or 4 grams. When we look at this percentage, it seems like a really good number. Foods that contain 20% or more of their daily percent value is considered high in that nutrient. 5 grams or more fiber is considered high. If we compare with this other second cereal here, our serving size is 3/4 of a cup. So it's a smaller amount. However, when we look at the dietary fiber, it's over the 5 grams. It's 6 grams and 20% of our daily value in fiber. This cereal has a higher amount of fiber, so we are getting more benefits in this one. Another thing that we want to keep in mind is serving sizes. If you're going to have 2 cups of cereal, then this percent daily value that we are looking at for 17 will double because you're eating 2 cups instead of 1. 17 times 2 gives us a 34% daily value. You can apply the same to the second cereal here. When we are looking at our nutrition fact labels and our daily percent value, we can also look at what other items it contains too. So here we can look at our total fats, our sodium levels, and we can also compare our sugars. We want to also choose items that are low in sugar. If you keep going down the nutrition facts label, you're going to look at the different vitamins and minerals that are found in both of them. And like we mentioned, when you look at the ingredient list, you can also see what it contains. So that's one example of comparing products. Let's compare 2 more items so that we can look at the daily value of fiber that we're getting. Earlier, we compared our flour tortilla to our whole wheat tortilla. Here we have the white flour tortilla and the whole wheat. Again, we're going to look at the nutrition facts label and compare the amount of fiber found in each one. The serving size for both of them is 1 tortilla. When we look at total carbohydrates, the dietary fiber is 4%. Remember that we would want to choose something that's 5 grams or higher or 20% in daily percent value.
Over here in this whole wheat tortilla, our dietary fiber is at 5 grams or 18% of our percent daily value in dietary fiber. When we look at the ingredients, we know that this one is whole wheat and this one is enriched bleached flour. And then you can also look at the different vitamins and minerals found in each one and compare. Like we mentioned, we also want to look at the sugars and choose items that are low in sugar. Those are different ways that you can compare. Here's another example of something that you might snack on, some crackers. Again, looking at the nutrition facts label, it lets us know that the serving size is about 16 pieces. Let's look at the dietary fiber. Dietary fiber says that one serving size is going to give us 3 grams of fiber, or 11% in our daily percent value. It also contains some amount of sugar. If we look down at our ingredients, we know that it's whole grain wheat, so it is a whole grain. Do you think 3 grams is high? If you are having the 16 pieces, but sometimes maybe you have more than just one serving, maybe you're having 2 servings. Like we said, one serving size is 16 pieces. If we're having more than one, then 2 servings is considered 32 pieces. You just want to multiply and figure out the serving sizes. When we look at the one serving size, the daily percent value is 11%. So if you're having 2 servings, then you just double that. Here we see that we have 22% of our daily value in dietary fiber. Now that we know the importance of making half our grains whole grains, how to look for whole grains, we want to also incorporate them into our meal planning. Here's my plate. Remember that half of our plate should look like fruits and vegetables, a little less than a quarter to be our protein group, and a little bit over 1/4 to be our grains group. Let's look at some of our meals and how we can aim to choose whole grains. Depending on your age, you might have to eat a different amount of grains. Remember, for adults, we want between 6 to 8 ounces of grains in a day. Here I have 6 ounces. Half of a bagel is considered 1 ounce. 1 6-inch tortilla is considered 1 ounce, so we're at 2 ounces here. Our white bread, 1 slice is also 1 ounce. We're at 3. Half a cup of cooked pasta is another ounce. Same thing with half a cup of rice, and then maybe eating 1 small piece of dinner roll, a biscuit, or piece of bread can also be 1 ounce. We have 6 ounces total. Our goal is that at least 3 of these should be whole grains. When I look closely, I realize that none of them are 100% whole grains, except for our whole wheat dinner roll. That means that we are only 1/3 of the way there. Do you know how you might switch some of these things out in order to increase our whole grain foods? Well, maybe we can try swapping some of these out. If for breakfast you're having half a bagel, maybe we can increase the whole grain amount here. Instead of having half of a bagel, you can have 1 whole cup, 1 ounce of whole wheat cereal or whole grain cereal. Or something like a cup of oatmeal for breakfast. Now we have 2 out of our 6 ounces being whole grains. Is there anything else you might switch out? Well, if you're having a sandwich, you can always try swapping out your white bread for whole grain bread. Now we are halfway there. You can stop here. Or you can continue to increase the amount of whole grain foods in your diet. Just remember that if you are doing so, slowly begin incorporating them until your body is used to the amount of fiber you are now receiving. Now, if you don't like whole wheat bread, then maybe we can swap something else out. Let's keep our white bread. Is there anything you can switch out? Well, how about the half a cup of rice? Remember that brown rice is considered a whole grain, so instead of eating white rice, you can swap out for brown rice. Or if you prefer to eat pasta, maybe you can make that change there. Either way, you're at half your goal. If you find yourself snacking on things like potato chips, this could also be a great way to switch over and increase your amount of whole grains. Instead of potato chips, you might want to have something like popcorn. Popcorn is considered a whole grain food because it's made of whole corns. If you don't like those, you can also look for whole corn tortilla chips. You're still snacking, but you're switching to have something with more fiber and more benefits. So these are different ways that you can incorporate whole grains into your diet or make some changes. Do you think you'll make any changes? Are there any whole grain foods that you haven't tried but would like to? Are there any here that you would have changed instead of the ones I talked about? If you're looking to continue to make changes in your diet, keep in mind the guidelines of My Plate. Remember to eat a healthy and nutritious breakfast. Fiber in the morning and whole grains will keep us fuller, and so we're able to concentrate throughout the day. Not only that, but it also gives us long-term energy when our body is absorbing and releasing the energy of our carbohydrates. And most importantly, we're getting all of the nutritional benefits from eating whole grains when we start our day. We also want to make sure that we're keeping our foods healthy and safe. Make sure that you know how to store your grain foods. Things like your pastas and dry goods can stay in a tightly closed containers in a cool, dry place. That can be something like storing your pasta in a cool, dry place, and your flours as well. If you're eating chips or tortilla chips, as well as your grain foods. Things like bread can also be kept frozen for up to 3 months. And make sure to discard any moldy bread or grain foods.
I hope you enjoyed our lesson on how to make half your grains whole, and that you were able to learn the importance behind the benefits of whole grains, how to look for whole grains, how to keep them safe, and also incorporate them into your meals. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you back next week. Next week's lesson is all about building and maintaining strong bones. Remember to fill out the survey at the end of this lesson to help us improve our programming, and to also find out how you can redeem some Brooks Farm Brooks or food bucks in your area.